It's time for Common Sense America with Eden O'Neill. Yeah.
And good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday. It is November the 15th. And I tell you what a day we have ahead of us here at Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. To all who are tuning in, thank you so much for being a part of the show and for your support. We have only been going on for 2 months. And I tell you what, we bring top officials to the show to talk about truth, to talk about God, country, and family. So I am grateful for all of your support. I am grateful to those who are all over this country supporting this show, bringing powerful content to this show. You know, this morning I woke up and I was watching legacy media, reading some of the legacy news, ABC News, i.e. And, Yellen was on there, and then David Muir was talking about his interview with former Vice President Pence. And, there's so many different things happening in and around our nation and our backyard. So for all of those who have not tuned in to any of the national news headlines this morning, I want to bring you just a couple things at the top of this hour before we bring over Jack Salmon, who is with Young Voices. He is a contributor. He's with the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. We're going to be talking about reckless government spending. Yes, reckless government spending, how they are taking the money. And I tell you what, there's a lot that we need to break down because we are headed into the winter months of 2023. And there's a lot that needs to be discussed and how we as the American people need to be protecting our dollars and our cents. In the second half of the show, and I will be bringing Dr. Matthew Harrison back to the show because there's a lot to talk about. But you know what? You know how Governor DeSantis said in his speech the other night, where woke goes to die, Florida is where woke goes to die. Well, unfortunately, I have to say that North Carolina is where unborn babies come to die, unfortunately. We are still a destination state for abortion. And it is disgusting, it's vile, and it's pathetic that the General Assembly of the state of North Carolina has not done more. And, we are going to be talking about that. Dr. Matthew Harrison is going to be speaking to the abortion pill reversal. And so, this is going to cause a lot of controversy here on this show. I'm sure YouTube will probably tamper with my links. They are a bunch of fascists over there, but they do carry the show for right now. And I'm sure Facebook's going to have a blast with this episode. But you know what? We have got to fight. We have got to fight for the lives of the unborn. And, there's a lot that needs to be talked about with that. But, I'm tired of the fact that those who just have gotten elected to the North Carolina State House and State Senate never talked about pro-life issues when they were running. All we ever received were term limits, campaign mail. What's that about? We need to be fighting for the lives of the unborn. And, with this being a battleground state, as we head into the presidentials, there are a lot of people that are raising the hands, raising the red flags, and are concerned. But at the end of the day, I am not going to stop fighting for the lives of the unborn. And we're going to talk this out and we're going to talk this through because I don't want to be reading all of these different things that are coming to the forefront as North Carolina being a destination state for abortions. That's disgusting, sick, and vile. So on that note, we're going to be having some heavy conversations this morning. But first and foremost, I'm grateful for the support of Young Voices. I'm grateful for their support to the show, and they bring powerful content and truth to Common Sense America, and they make it common sense for the American people. So on that note, I am honored to bring over to the show Jack Salmon. He is a contributor to Young Voices, and I will tell you, he is going to be talking about his most recent article in the National Review. Good morning, Jack. How are you?
Good morning, Eden. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. It's so nice to meet you. You were one of the first I've had from, I have a lot of returning Young Voices, and this is the first time and a new face to Common Sense America. So thank you for being here. And, I tell you what, if I could throw you just a couple of questions with the news headlines of today. I noticed Yellen spoke to ABC News this morning, and well, it was pre-recorded, obviously, but she was talking about what's going to be ahead, especially for the East Coast come the winter months with our economy, with food in the stores, things of that nature. Can you speak briefly to that? Because it really goes back to what you wrote in your article, reckless government spending. And it seems that we just are seeing this daily now from the media and the news cycle. Could you break that down for our conservative audience here at Common Sense America?
Yeah, it's quite ironic that it's Janet Yellen that's the one that's dissipating these messages. Given that it was Janet Yellen who was the CEA in the 1990s, she was the CEA chairwoman, who warned us about the problems with growing our debt too large. Mm-hmm. At the time, our debt was only a fraction of what it is today, and it was almost we had almost balanced our books by the late 90s. She then testified before Congress in 2017 and warned that the level of debt should be keeping people awake at night. All of a sudden, in 2021, she completely changed her mind. She did a complete 180. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, the debt was sustainable. President Biden's budget proposal was to grow the debt to 117% of GDP, and she described that as fiscally sustainable. So nothing really has changed over that period other than our debt's become larger. What's changed is the way people think about it, and people like Yellen in particular. It tends to suit their policy goals to mm-hmm. not worry so much about the debt. But what really happened was during this period of the last decade or so, we had very low interest rates, artificially low interest rates, you could say.
Right.
Policymakers were able to roll over their debt into interest rates of 1%, 0%. Mm-hmm. And so they got addicted to spending, and they spent to no end. And we're now at a point where we're seeing a spike in interest rates, and it's really starting to put pressure on federal budgets, and they're starting to panic a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I read that part in your National Review article, exactly what you said. I even had that part highlighted as we were talking about Janet Yellen. I mean, you even said in the late 1990s, Janet Yellen, then the chairwoman of the Council of Economic Advisors, stressed the importance of paying down debt. But you are now saying in the reckless government spending, they have horrible rates, remain policymakers borrow and spend freely, and bills are due. And then you also go in and say, when the government pays down the debt, it also, this is what she said, it is also borrowing less in capital markets that adds to the economy's savings and helps the economy and households by driving down interest rates, raising investment, and making sure that our children will enter workplaces that are better equipped so they can be more productive. And then, like you said, yet in the years since, Yellen seems to have done a complete 180, reiterating how the debt trajectory should keep people awake at night. How does that help us, though? How is that going to help us? You know, at the top of your article, it says the assumption that rates would remain low forever, encouraged by policymakers. Why are they continuing to assume these things, to borrow and then spend freely our money? Now bills are coming due. And they are not budgeting like we, the American people, need to budget. They're working on a continued deficit. So talk to me about what your thoughts are. I know that you are at George Mason University, that is, you are a part of the Mercatus Center, which is huge. Talk to me about what you see on the horizon come 2023, as we are talking about the breakdown of the American family, the kitchen table topics. Talk to me about that.
Sure. Well, first, I just want to corroborate something that you just said, which is yes. that the debt tends to crowd out the capital markets. That's an important point. I was worried about this before interest rates spiked. So I actually compiled all of the studies that were published over the last decade between 2010 and 2020 that looked at the relationship between the debt level and the rate of economic growth, because mm-hmm. that's what really matters at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And there's a very strong consensus among the economic literature that the higher the debt, the higher the level of debt gets, the more diminished rates of growth we see. If we're mm-hmm. not seeing growth, we're not seeing wage growth. If we're not seeing wage growth, we're seeing more stagnation. Now, mm-hmm. limited wage growth combined with inflation is a terrible recipe for American families, right. as we're now finding out. Right. So that's very important. The capital crowd out aspect is very important when we're talking about the debt. But the second part of your question, what's happening now as we move into 2023 is also important, because this spike in interest rates was so unprecedented. Nobody saw this coming, because our policymakers, as well as economists, had gotten used to this idea that interest rates would be low forever. Interest rates have really been falling since the 1980s,
Right.
for a variety of different reasons. And so people have gotten used to this assumption that they're always going to be falling, or at least they're going to be low, as they were since 2010. And so it's kind of baked into their models for many economists. And so they assume that we're going to go back to that very quickly. The issue is most of our debt is in very short-term maturities. What I mean by that is the addiction to debt that policymakers have is so strong, and the assumption interest rates are going to be low, that they roll the debt over into the shortest term maturities they can possible, because they have the best interest rates, the lowest interest rates. You might roll over debt into a 10-year treasury, but you'll pay 1% interest rate. But if you roll it over into a 3-year treasury, you may only pay 0.1%. And so our debt, something like 51% of our entire debt is in treasuries of 3 years or less. That's the maturity date, which means a small spike in interest rates really hurts when it comes to paying interest on the debt. And that's what we're starting to see now. What I think we're going to see in 2023 is it's quite possible that the total amount that we pay on our interest for our debt is going to be about the same level as our entire defense budget this year. That's what I think is going to happen. And that gives you some idea of the scale, and we're not used to this.
Right. No, we're not. No, we're not. Let me ask you this. I want to switch gears just for a second. I'm noticing that a new report came out on the student loan forgiveness aspect this morning. ABC News, i.e. Legacy Media is what I call them, came out with a report. And I noticed that you have reported on the student debt and student loan forgiveness. I've heard some of your interviews, and I wanted to, if we could break that down a little bit. I talked to a lot of educators. I talked to a lot of conservative educators on this show, because we are all about fighting the indoctrination, and we're all about, really removing the indoctrination from the schools. But I've talked to educators who have stopped teaching because of what they're seeing in regards to what's happening to our systems. But let me ask you this. I noticed this. Evidently, 43 million are eligible for the student loan forgiveness. And then another 26 million have applied. And that was reported in ABC News this morning in the note. And so my question to you is, what do you see if this would continue to go through? Evidently, it was struck down, I guess, in the state of Missouri, and that was what they were reporting on this morning. But talk to me about that. And here's what, this is the heartstrings of it. I'm going to take all policy aside, and this is the heartstrings of it. My parents and their generation went to trade school. My parents are hardworking Americans. Why in the world do they have to pay for a spoiled little brat to go to an Ivy League school and pay for their student debt? Because it's going to be on the taxpayers. That's what gets to the very core of this issue with me. So talk to me about that. Talk to me about I don't want to be too specific, but I know people that go to Ivy League schools. They're expecting to graduate and get 6-figure jobs as soon as I graduate. And I said, wait a second, you got to learn how to make coffee first, like the rest of us, And I got very passionate about that, but that is the God's honest truth. So talk to me about the student loan aspect and what we're going to see on the horizon for us as the taxpayer, for us as the hardworking American who chose to go to a trade school versus an Ivy League school, who chose to be a small business owner versus going to an Ivy League school. Talk to me about that.
So that was the approach that I took in my article. What I was really talking about was the regressive nature of this policy. I don't often make predictions, but I did predict a couple of months ago. I was so confident I tweeted it, which never happens. I said that my prediction for this towards the end of this year is that this student loan forgiveness gets stuck in the courts. And then at the end of the year, the president extends the student loan forgiveness into 2023, which was something that was passed during the beginning of the pandemic, and it was supposedly pandemic relief. But at this point, it seems to be never ending.
Right, exactly.
Just the cost of the pause on student loans from March 2020 up until now. For the highest earning graduates, it's relief of about $40,000, just to give you some idea of the scale. That's the highest earning. Those are the six-figure graduate degree types.
Right.
They've received $40,000 in loan relief, plus if you calculate the effect of inflation eating away the interest,
right,
it's about $40,000 for those people.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're going to get an extra $10,000, possibly $20,000 in loan relief.
Mm-hmm.
And it's primarily the highest earners in the country who are getting this relief.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the middle income worker. It's not the smart people who chose instead to go into trade schools, as you said.
Right.
And it's also not those who did go to college, managed to get a good job, and actually pay off their debts. I mean, it really flies in the face of those people. Silly you.
Silly me. Who would have thought?
It's deeply, deeply regressive. But it's clear it was clearly done at a particular time of the year, about 2 months before a midterm election for particular reasons. And that's the sad truth. It's terrible, terrible public policy. It's deeply regressive. This is an administration that tries to paint itself as being progressive, as supporting the working person. This was deeply regressive.
Not even close. Not even close. Okay, so let me throw another one at you. As I Common Sense America, we talk truth, we talk kitchen table discussion, and I know I studied you, and I knew what you could bring to the table. So I wanted to, even though we talked about the National Review article, I wanted to also talk to you about something else that came out this morning, and it is in regards to. Well, we talked about Yellen, but I wanted to also ask you this in Politico this morning, why Biden's SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Gary Gensler is expected to propose major changes to the rules governing in the stock market. And evidently he's enraging Wall Street. Did you have a chance to read that? Are you aware of what's going on there? And what are your thoughts on that?
I actually haven't. I've not had the chance to look into that.
Sure. So let me read the just a bit of the article. Wall Street's top regulator is pursuing the biggest overhaul of the 51 trillion U.S. stock markets in 2 decades. First, he'll have to fend off a major industry resistance campaign. Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Gary Gensler, a former Goldman Sachs partner turned progressive icon, is set to launch a regulatory broadside in the coming weeks against brokerage and trading giants, including Charles Schwab, Robinhood, and GOP Ken Griffin's Citadel Securities, according to interviews with more than a dozen executive lawmakers, regulators, and investor advocates. The rules that Gensler is spearheading would revamp the stock market's plumbing, partly in response to the 2020 meme stock saga and the Robinhood and other brokerages attracted scrutiny after they were overwhelmed by trading in shares of companies such as GameStop and AMC. Gensler, who has held leading regulatory roles in the Biden and Obama administrations, or I'll just say Biden administrations, has questions whether investors are operating in an environment that is as fair and competitive as possible. He's expected to crack down on the complex web of payments and fees that exchange brokerages and trading firms share with processing investor stock trades. It continues to go on, but there is quite the uproar. And my thoughts are instantly, what else? Evidently, he wasn't so progressive before, and now he's become progressive, and he is really wreaking havoc on Wall Street. What are your thoughts with that initial opening of that Politico article? And I don't usually go to Politico, but a conservative friend posted that on Twitter this morning. I said, all right, let me dig deeper a little bit here.
So it's not really my topic, but from what it sounds like, I mean, the article itself sounds somewhat vague. There are a lot of vaguities.
Go Politico
right.
For being
so
vague.
That's not necessarily a surprise, but it doesn't sound like it's positive from the perspective of using market signals, and it sounds like we're going to see a lot more government intervention in markets, and they tend to be using this sort of antitrust policy from 100 years ago to sort of push a particular progressive agenda, which really shouldn't be involved in markets. Markets are about merit, and so that's what we should be seeing. And so I don't know what this means for for shareholders, but it's not sounding like it's anything positive from
No.
where I'm sitting.
No, most definitely. So those are the top things of the news of the day I wanted to talk with you about. But from your perspective and your leadership role, I've been reading and everything that you've been focusing on, and I'm really just so impressed to talk with you about what is happening. But if you could, this would be the final question for our segment. If you could just briefly talk to the moms, the single moms, the families of 4, families of 6. If you could briefly just talk to them in the way that you would say to your mom, hey, this is what we see happening. What would be some of your recommendations from a financial standpoint, as we see policymakers continuing to rape the American people of their wallets? What would you say to your mom or your dad as we prepare for? I'm already projecting into 2023 as I do these segments, knowing that we have a lot ahead of us. The midterms turned again on the American people, and what I'm concerned about is what more the authoritarian state continues to show its ugly head through this Biden administration. And so my question to you is, from your standpoint, and I'm an admirer of George Mason University. I do really respect that school and I love what you bring to the table. What are some of your final thoughts on that?
In terms of what I would say to mums across the country, first I would say I'm so sorry that you're having to deal with these pressures right now on these issues.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of advice, given the trajectory of interest rates, it's not just for public debt, but it's also in the private markets.
Yeah.
If you can keep your debts at a minimum in terms of whether it's car loans or credit cards, just because it's going to be sensitive to those changes. And other than that, it's difficult because I don't know where inflation is going when it comes to things like food and energy prices. Sadly, we have an administration that's not interested in keeping energy prices low. They seem to be against drilling on federal lands and things like this, and they're very keen to close off pipelines for energy resources. And so it's going to be tough, but do hold out there. I'm a glass half full type person, and I think there are sunnier days ahead.
I've heard you say that.
just hold on.
Well, thank you for that. As I am going to be pushing out your National Review article, how a decade of low interest rates fueled reckless government spending. In your final words of government and reckless spending, they just go hand in hand together these days, and they have been going hand in hand together for quite a while now. If Trump does potentially announce tonight he's running for 2024, would you see on the horizon, and I know you're not a predictor, but I'm just asking, from this standpoint, if he does announce tonight, perhaps, do you think that would be him being back in office, or a fiscal conservative being back in office? Do you think it could reel in the reckless government spending? Or do you think it's just too far gone?
I don't want to say it's too far gone. From my experience, particularly from a European experience, for policymakers to kick into action often takes near crisis levels of debt and problems. So I never say it's too far gone. If anything, the closer it is, the more likely we are to see action. Mm-hmm. Whether or not that comes from a new administration is another question. I was somewhat optimistic that we might see some of that under the last administration, but I didn't get too many signals of trying to reduce our debt. I heard it in the debates, but I didn't see it in action. So I hope we will. Things may have to get more painful before we get to that level, unfortunately. But as I say, I try to be glass half full. So
yes, well, thank you. Oh, well, Jack Salmon, I'm so glad that you came to Common Sense America your first time here. I look forward to having you back. I love reading your work on National Review, and unfortunately, I don't subscribe to it sometimes. So sometimes I get my limit on how much I can read. But I love your work. Thank you for what you're doing. I love young voices. You guys are great. So please come back, and thank you so much for what you are doing. Thank you for raising the flag and educating us all, and thank you for being able and so sincere to the kitchen table moms and the moms around America as we prepare for 2023. So we're grateful for you. Have a wonderful day, sir.
You too. Thank you so much, Eden.
Thank
Take care.
you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And for all of those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill, and so grateful to Anders and all of the young voices, contributors, and commentators who come and bring us powerful stories daily, powerful stories of truth. Yes, truth. We're all about truth here. You know what? My audience, for all of those who tune in and who tune in later on YouTube and who tune in all the other social channels, I'm grateful for your support. But at the end of the day, my audience is an audience of one, and that is God. And I really seek to keep this show faith, compassionate care, faith-based, God-honoring faith, family, and country. Sometimes I get a little heated. It's probably my Zabar's coffee that really kicks in, but I also really get, heated, and that is the Holy Spirit. That is at the end of the day. And it is talking about life. It is talking about what is impacting our nation. And I'll tell you what's impacting our nation right now. It is a president who doesn't know where the heck he is half the time. It is a president who continues to say things that are mumbled, distorted, and you can't even understand what is coming out of his mouth. It is a president who was not physically fit to be a president. And it is a president who has diminished the office of the presidency. Not Trump, Biden. Yes, that is my mentality. And I am sticking to it because you and I both know that that is the truth. You and I both know it. I am riled up this morning because I'm getting sick and tired of being lied to by an administration that's gone awry, that's progressive, that all they care about is China. All they care about is becoming a one world order. All they care about is the Great Reset. They don't care about the United States of America anymore. And I'm tired of being lied to. And I'm tired of listening to legacy media distort the truth. So we here at Common Sense America, for all the supporters that come to the show, we are talking about truth. We're talking about the election integrity issues that we are seeing across the nation. We are talking about rhinos, Republicans in name only, who get elected and who run on certain issues. But at the end of the day, nothing comes to fruition. We are talking about Republicans who are standing up for the conservative values of faith, family, and country. We are talking about the candidates and those who are newly elected. Are they fighting for pro-life? Are they fighting for the lives of the unborn? Are they? It's yet to be seen. I am so sickened by the fact that I have to live in a state that is known for destination abortion. Really? Really, people? The empty suit and the General Assembly, can you not hold the empty suit accountable? Can you not stand up? Or are you a bunch of Republicans in name only and you're just sitting there passing your hard candies around the floors and not getting anything done? Because that's what it looks like. You don't do anything for our veterans, and you are definitely not doing anything for our babies. Last week, I had somebody tell me that in a week, more than 500 abortions happen in Charlotte alone. Think about that for a second. We're going to take a quick break. It's 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. In just about 5 minutes, we're going to bring over to the show Dr. Matthew Harrison. He is based in Salisbury, North Carolina, and he is a family medicine doctor. He is a medical advisor for Priest for Life. He is a Carolina Catholic Media podcast, quote, Prescription Life host. And he also was featured in the Queen City News, quote, Charlotte doctor pioneers abortion pill reversal treatment. We're going to be talking about the abortion reversal pill treatment. We're going to be talking about the effects on the mother, the effects on the child, and the opportunity for this versus Planned Parenthood telling you otherwise. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. For all those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. I'm Eden Hill. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. If you are listening in or watching, thank you for following on YouTube. Thank you for following on all the social channels. We are grateful to have you here. And this morning, we are going to be talking with Dr. Matthew Harrison on pro-life and the abortion pill reversal, and looking forward to having him come over to the show. But before he comes over this morning, he'll be joining in just a few minutes. I wanted to also let you know we're going to be having some great new guests, special features coming to the show this whole week and headed through the Christmas and Thanksgiving season. And so tomorrow we're going to be featuring a young businessman from Jacksonville, North Carolina, here in Eastern North Carolina, who was awarded last evening on a huge event. And so we will be bringing him. He will be our guest, a special guest tomorrow for the show. And then on Thursday and Friday, we're going to be focusing on additional commentary and the news headlines, new faces from young voices, and then also a veteran spouse caregiver who will be coming to the show on Friday. Thanks to so many of my veteran support groups and veteran spouses who I get to work with. And I'm just so grateful for each and every one of you. Also, if you did not know, this month is National Caregiver Month. And also, if you did not know, this month is National Homelessness Month. So for all of those who are out there looking to get involved, looking to serve in a certain capacity, I know Thanksgiving and Christmas inspire people to serve during that time of year. And I don't want you to forget that there are many other months in the year where these groups could use your prayers, your financial support, and your hands to give. And that is including our homeless missions in the great state of North Carolina. That is including also our veteran spouses, our caregivers, our military spouses, our military children. So if you are not involved, I know we lead busy schedules, we lead busy lives. I know that we are very busy on our phones, working from home, getting kids to school, helping others in many senses. But if you have the time, at least pray for our homeless, pray for our military spouses, and pray for our caregivers. They are of such importance, and we need to be thinking of them during this holiday season. You know, every Friday we do focus on a military or veteran service organization. So if you have any recommendations, please send me notes on our social pages. Please send me notes on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and also YouTube. We would love to hear your thoughts. Also, we will be bringing over some Christmas book authors, and also next Monday, the 21st, the week of Thanksgiving, we will be doing another Christmas special and segment from our home. And we'll be focusing on some recipes and also some Christmas traditions that we would love to share with you and your family as we head into the Thanksgiving season. Next week, my only show will be Monday, the 21st. The rest of the week, we will be on travel for Thanksgiving, and we would love for you to send in your stories and your images from your Thanksgiving holiday. And we would love to share those with our audience. We're so grateful for your support, and we would love to have that. We would love to swap stories. I know I find myself on social media a lot more these days because of promoting the show and promoting the amazing guests that we have to Common Sense America. But in that, I would love for you to just share your stories, and we would love to share them here at Common Sense America. Also, as we head into the December season, we are going to be focusing a lot more on human interest stories. I've reached out to Catholic Charities. I've reached out to Toys for Tots, and I also reached out to Hope for New York with their his toy store. And so I'm hoping that we will have them come and speak to the show as we head into December and as we celebrate the birth of Christ, as we celebrate the holiday season, bringing community and people together. If you are local to Eastern North Carolina, I also wanted to encourage you, please, please, please consider donating to the local hospice. The Croatan High School students are putting on the annual Lights of Love, which happens here at Megan's Bay on Saturday, December the 3rd. It's the first Saturday in December. Well, they'll be opening up the gates to Megan's Bay. Megan's Bay will be fully decorated in its holiday inspiration, and people get to drive through and see, as a family, as friends, come together to gather around food and celebration of the Christmas season. So if you are in the area and you would like to come drive through, the gates will be open December the 3rd. Lights of Love, the streets will be lit with beautiful candles, and you will get to see a lot of festive fare for the holiday season. And it is important as we raise money for the local hospice. That's where all the money will be going again this year. This has been going on for many years, but it really, truly brings community together. And so I want to say thank you to the Croatan High School students who are putting it on. Many of them are neighbors of ours in Megan's Bay. So we want to thank you for leading the way, leading and being of service to local organizations that really need a special dose of love during this Christmas season. So we will be bringing more of those human stories, human interest stories to the show. Yeah, so we will be talking politics tomorrow, and politics and politics and politics. But at the end of the day, it's the kitchen table discussions that are really important as we talk to the moms, the dads, the kids, as we talk to our community, our retirees, our active duty. This area has more than 9,000 veterans and military active duty. And so we really need to be talking about what is affecting our kitchen table. I know one thing that kind of hit me to the core this morning was hearing that West Point is now demanding, authoritarian, telling all of its cadets they all need to take the COVID vaccination. I'm not for it. I'm seeing too many friends and family get sick from the COVID vaccination when it was intended to help. Perhaps the intentions were sincere. I'm not going to put too much stock in it, but it hit to the core knowing that so many want to serve this great nation, and yet they're being forced to do things that they would rather not do. I don't agree with it. When my husband served in the United States Army, they were told they needed to take the anthrax vaccination. And, he took it against his will. So we're not going to go into the vax, conversation this morning, but it did hit to the core because we have so many that want to serve this great nation, and they're being forced to do things that they would rather not do. But so we will continue that conversation, but I want to bring over to the show instantly Dr. Matthew Harrison. He is, again, a family medicine doctor in Salisbury, North Carolina, medical advisor, priest for life. He also has his podcast, Prescription Life. He is the host, and he is known as the Charlotte Doctor, pioneering abortion pill reversal treatment. And I'm so glad to bring him to the show. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. It was great to have Dr. Pincus on last week with North Carolina Right to Life. He spoke very highly of you. He mentioned that you're going to be at the prayer breakfast in January 2023. And I wanted to get with you as I was studying up on everything that you were doing. I've listened to some of your podcasts. Are you there? Okay, there you are. Okay. You blacked out for a second. But I wanted to talk with you. I know legacy media has probably distorted the abortion pill reversal treatment. And I wanted to hear from you specifically. Talk to me about the treatment that you are doing, and talk to me, and a couple of the questions that instantly came to mind, and I know we talked about this yesterday, the effects of the mother and the effects of the child as you do the pill reversal treatment. I would love to hear from you to kick off what you have seen, what you have witnessed, and the power of doing this. I'm very much supportive of this. And so,
sure. So in
all the moms that are listening, I would, it's a very conservative audience. So.
Yeah. So in 2006, I had an outpatient office. I was doing inpatient, outpatient, and obstetrics. And we were also doing fertility care treatment, which my partner had gone through training at the Pope Paul VI Institute in Nebraska for A lot of this is based on progesterone replacement for women who have what's called luteal phase defects, and have miscarriages because they can't carry babies to term. And so a young lady came into my office who had taken RU46 and wanted to know if she could reverse it or do anything to save her baby. She had not taken the second medication in the process, which is called Cytotec, which induces labor, but she had taken mifepristone, which is the kind of trade name for RU46. And what that does is it's a progesterone blocker. It blocks receptors in the uterus or the lining where the placenta attaches the baby to the mother, and essentially shrivels up those blood vessels, causing the baby to lose oxygen, nutrition, and then essentially the placenta separates away from the uterus. The baby dies and then comes out after taking the Cytotec, the labor-inducing medication. So she had come to me. She had taken the pill about 36 hours prior. She said, "Is there anything we could do?" So I knew that we had progesterone in the office. I said, "You know what? I'd done research at Johns Hopkins, at Duke University, at Medical College of Virginia in my training prior to becoming a doctor. I knew, simple cell receptor biology and how that worked, and that we could probably outcompete the RU46 by giving extra progesterone so that we could reactivate those receptors and save the baby." So I told her this had never been done before, but we have used progesterone. Progesterone has been used safely in pregnant women for 50 years without serious side effects, especially when we give it in doses that are simply identical to biological doses. And so she agreed, and she wanted to do that. So we moved forward, gave her progesterone injections. That was on a Thursday. The following night, she actually started to have some cramping, and we were afraid we were going to lose the baby. So she went to the emergency room, got an ultrasound, saw the baby's heartbeat for the first time, which she was excited about. And she actually did have a little, kind of like a small hemorrhage cyst that was forming between the placenta and the uterus. And the ER doctor said, hope for the best, go back home. The baby's still alive. She did. She stopped bleeding. She came back in Monday. We confirmed the baby was still living. We gave her more injections of progesterone through her first trimester, and the baby did fine. The baby was born in March of 2007, is now 15 years old, healthy young lady. And since that time, so that was the first one. Since that time, we started to receive calls from other physicians around the country and around the world wondering about how to do this. And so Dr. George Delgado involved me in a study, his first study that was published in 2012, just looking at 6 patients who had had a reversal attempt. 4 of those women carried the pregnancies to term and were healthy. And, the conclusions were, of course, this is a very small sample size. There's no kind of controls or anything. But the conclusion was, we should look into this. This might be a way of saving babies when mothers change their mind about taking the abortion pill. So over the course of many years after that, he published another study with over 500 women that were included in the study and met inclusion criteria. And when they took the abortion reversal protocol correctly, up to 68% of the women were able to save their babies.
Oh, wow.
That is a lot higher than if you do nothing.
Right.
The studies, and when you do a literature review, and I published a paper with Mary Davenport in a journal that essentially was a literature review of what happens if you do nothing. Anywhere from 7 to 23% of babies will survive if you just take the first pill in the abortion process and don't take the second one.
Okay.
And that's if you do nothing. So we know that up to a quarter of women, if they do nothing, can have a baby survive an abortion. A lot of that kind of depends on how far along she is, pregnancy, the doses that are given, and that type of thing. But our studies were pretty solid that if you follow the progesterone replacement protocol, that up to 68% of the mothers will be able to carry that baby to term. And we have not seen any significant side effects to babies. We have not seen significant side effects to mothers, other than if they get the injections, they can sometimes have some pain, obviously, at the injection site and irritation. We have also found that taking pills instead of shots are just as effective, if not can be even more effective than if you take the shots. For one reason, is because women are more compliant with that. They're more willing to take a pill than to take an injection, and it's very easy and it's cheaper, and we've had good success with that. So to date, in 2016, Heartbeat International took over our hotline, which was a national hotline, and now they have taken it worldwide, so that we have over 1,000 providers worldwide that can reverse abortions. We have successfully reversed over 3,500 babies have been born alive and healthy since this time. So we're really excited about how this is progressing. And one of the very important parts about this is that as states have started to curtail abortion access,
Yes.
there are more and more women who are taking abortion pills. Pretty soon, it's essentially now over 50% of abortions are now medical or medicine abortions, chemical abortions. And that number is projected to get to 70% really within the next few years. So these are going through mail orders. People are getting them online, pills online.
Mm-hmm.
And so there needs to be a lot of access. There's telemedicine abortions that are occurring. These are all very dangerous because
Yes.
women are in very remote places,
Yes.
abortions in their homes, and a lot of these can lead to either infections. If a woman has an infection and is trying to have an abortion, and if the abortion is not completed, they're stranded in the middle of nowhere with a bad infection, or they can hemorrhage. If anyone of you have seen the movie Unplanned, that is a very accurate depiction of what can happen in an RU46 abortion. And so women can hemorrhage, and if they're stranded in the middle of nowhere getting a tele-abortion, they have no access to blood products. They have no access to quality health care. So it's really dangerous, these tele-abortions that are happening. And so this is one thing that we're starting to look into, is how can we safely and effectively deliver reversal to women and offer that, plus offer follow-up support and prenatal care for women who are seeking to reverse their abortions and save their babies.
Do you find that North Carolina Right to Life or Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America would be those conduits to kind of carry that message for what you are doing with the pill reversal as you are wanting to educate more, or is it having, because I love both of those organizations, and I'm friends with Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. My other question is it having you be able to come on podcasts and speak to the masses where the legacy media is not going to distort the content and really educate those? And then my third comment to that is something Dr. Pincus and I talked about last week was educating the next generation, educating our teenagers, educating those who are becoming promiscuous at much younger ages now because of the social media and things that are happening. So are they, in fact, even knowing, let me go get it. North Carolina now is destination for abortion, all of those things. What would be the best way for us, the conservative audience here at Common Sense America, for the moms and the dads at the kitchen tables and the real discussions that happen across America? What can we do to help you educate on this opportunity to save the lives of the unborn?
Yes, that's a good question. And, any mass efforts that we can do across the board to get this message out are important. And then we have to speak out, not be afraid to speak out against misinformation.
Yeah.
And a lot of fear mongering that's going on, and a lot of stuff that's being talked about in media now. There's a lot going around about saying that, oh, well, now women can't have miscarriages, or women with ectopic pregnancies aren't going to get health care because it's going to be termed as an abortion. That's complete fabricated lie. Nowhere in the country is anyone being denied access to health care when they have an ectopic pregnancy, when they have a septic issue with chorioamnionitis, or any of these issues that are endangering the life of the mother. The doctors obviously need to treat both patients, be as aggressive as possible in healing the mother. That's going to be the best way to also heal and take care of the baby in the womb. So certainly all of those issues. The other thing that's very important is that we need to educate our healthcare community. I'm an assistant professor at Campbell Osteopathic School of Medicine. I have students that rotate through my hospital, and I teach them essentially basic pro-life medicine. Some of this stuff they've never heard or experienced before, just a different attitude when you see a patient, and this goes from womb to tomb. And so this is not only prenatal care patients, but also people at the end of life, when we're protecting their dignity of life, we're protecting the family's ability to spend time with them, their families' concerns about feeding and nutrition and all that. We have to educate our healthcare system. And most people go into healthcare because they want to save lives, not end lives.
Right.
So, but when they get into the kind of liberal, progressive healthcare academia machine, they get fed a lot of stuff and practically brainwashed in a lot of ways about how controlling someone's healthcare is more important than kind of treating the patient. In trying to look at things with a positive life perspective, rather than kind of this culture of death that seems to be glooming over top of hospitals and over top of our society in general.
I know we're coming up on the hour, and I wanted to get one final question into you as we head into 2023. And I've been asking these questions of the conservative commentators who come on the show as we are projecting what is ahead in 2023. It's what you said, educating the health profession and educating, because I feel like in many ways, we at Common Sense, we have common sense here. We see what is happening around us, but yet I sit there and say, I'm going to go down this path really quickly with you. My husband is a veteran, and I don't want to take him to the VA. I am very careful on where I go, where he goes. And as we project into 2023, you said there is this cloud of more of death than life. And so as we look into 2023, what can we do as individuals, as a community comes together? What can we do in preparing for what is ahead on the scale? We hear all the things of legacy media. They're talking about this, and this. But at the end of the day, I don't want to stop fighting for what we believe in. I want to fight for life. I want to go to Raleigh. I want to meet with Dr. Bill and say, hey, you know what? We can kick open these doors. We can raise awareness. I don't want us to stop. But as we head into 2023 with the newly elected leaders for both House, Senate, and then here in the great state of North Carolina, what are just a couple tools that you could give us after hearing? I've heard your story. I want to get you and your wife back here to really break down your story on a more 30, 40-minute podcast, because I've heard your story. I've heard the impact that you guys are making. Out of your toolkit, your faith toolkit, what can you say to my husband, myself, and those in the great state of North Carolina who want to continue to fight to prevent abortions from happening, and the projected, thinking of what they're wanting to force down our throats as we head into 2023? You don't have to get political. I do that. But from your faith toolkit, what would you say to my audience in that sense as we head into 2023?
Yeah, I think honestly, the biggest thing is very, very simple and straightforward, and it's love your neighbor.
Yeah.
That starts at home. So loving your family, loving your wife, your husband, your children, bringing them up in a faith-friendly atmosphere, where you pray with them, where you show that you're committed to your faith and that you're committed to, your moral standards, and that you're not going to compromise. And if that means you lose your job, then that means you lose your
Right.
job.
Right.
And I've seen that in my own family, where, I've had to stand up for things, concerning abortion, concerning vaccinations, concerning different things. And, you don't want to come across as some, like a wacko conspiracy theorist. You also don't want to come across as someone who's unscientific or unknowledgeable.
Right.
You have to have those tools, and ready to defend, what you believe and what you're standing against. But love your neighbor. And so when your family knows that and practices that, then you can go and reach out and love your neighbor that is in a crisis pregnancy, or that is alone in a nursing home, or that doesn't have family. And then when you've gotten good at that, you can love your enemy. And that enemy is your neighbor too.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes when, I'm down at the sidewalk and praying or offering support for women down there, sometimes the main people I'm praying for are the people that are the escorts and the security teams, because many of them carry a lot of baggage and are very dangerous individuals, and they need a lot of prayer. And when you can show them the love of Christ and be a neighbor, a loving neighbor to them, that will carry a lot of power and will go a long way towards healing our culture in general. I think those are the main things. Love your neighbor, and one person at a time. Don't feel like you have to go out and convert and, take care of an entire nation of people. Do it one person at a time, and you're going to make a difference one person at a time, and then that's going to multiply over the years.
On that note, you ended it perfectly for here at Common Sense America, because as we head into the holiday season, the Christmas season, the Thanksgiving season, I have been just bringing human interest stories to the table, talking about the homeless, talking about the elderly, talking about our veterans, and how we can impact our culture, how we can impact our backyard. And you said it perfectly, one person at a time. So thank you so much, Dr.
Thanks
Matthew.
for having me. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I sincerely want to have you and your wife back. I loved your story. I loved hearing it, and it's just a powerful story. So let's plan on that in the next couple of months. So many blessings to you. Thank you so much for what you
Thank
were
you.
doing.
Yeah, get my wife on here. She's the key to all of this.
It sounds like it from what you said in that podcast I listened to. So I look forward to it. Many blessings to you, sir. God bless you. We'll see you soon.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye. For all of those who are tuning in, this is the end of Common Sense America for today. I am Eden Hill. Thank you so much for tuning in to this very powerful hour with young voices, and also Dr. Matthew Harrison talking about the abortion pill reversal. It's just powerful people like that who are coming to the table here at Common Sense America, bringing truth, God, country, and family, and just raising that flag and raising the awareness we need. So as you heard from Dr. Matthew Harrison, it just takes one person. Love your neighbor, and then also love your enemy. So on that note, be strong, be courageous, get in the fight, don't give up. Until then, I will see you tomorrow. Many blessings to you.